Welcome to the next episode of the Existential Files with Dr. Louie Savva.
Oh, and Dr. Matthew Smith.
Yes, thank you. And on this particular occasion,
well, this is a special episode, isn't it?
It's probably the most special one so far.
It is, because our guest today is not an eminent scientist or an intellectual of any great note. She's just a random person that we've pulled off the street. So I'm going to say hello, Elizabeth.
Hi.
You are our only listener, I believe. Is that right?
No.
No. All right. Do you want to give us a little introduction, Elizabeth, briefly?
Tell us as much or as little bit about yourself as you would like.
Okay. My name's Elizabeth.
I want to say, I'm not sure who we're telling this to, because if Elizabeth is our only listener, who are we introducing? Carry on. Sorry, I interrupted.
We're talking to posterity out of our posteriors.
Okay.
We should have called the podcast Posterity from Our Posteriors.
We could do.
That would have been good.
Still.
We could rename it. Right, carry on.
I have a bachelor's in psychology and a bachelor's in philosophy, and then I just graduated with a master's in communication, and I'm currently working on a master's in instructional design and education technology.
Wowee, so you like degrees?
Yeah, basically.
And if I'm right in asking, you are just a brain in a vat, isn't it? This is
that I wish I was just a brain in a vat.
It could be organised. He knows people.
I think we got Peter Hankin back on. I'm sure he can organise that.
People, didn't he?
Yeah, he did know people. Anyway, so this one, we're going to mix this one up a bit, aren't we? So we're going to have like a question and answer session, I think.
I believe you have questions for Dr. Savva that we should press him on.
Yes. So one of so most of my questions involve the themes of the program. Because one of the things that I've noticed about you, Louie, is that you tend to justify everything or explain everything using evolutionary theory. Would that be a correct assessment?
I don't think I'd say I explain everything with evolutionary theory. I mean, for me, evolution is kind of a bedrock. You know, Darwin is the person who kind of explains why the world looks designed. And I think that for me is why I like to start with Darwin. I don't think it's right that evolution is is all the answer. And in fact, you know, for me, existentialism isn't about evolution. It's about what do we do. You know, I think it was Peter Hankin who said, you know, it's our address. Consciousness is our address. You know, and it's like once we know the address, the city, the zip code, we're still left with the question of what do we do, which is existentialism. So I don't think it's true. Evolution, yes, is one of my favorite, you know, things. Darwin is one of my heroes. So I do love a bit of evolution, and it's true that I do find evolution to be very powerful, a very powerful explanation of many of the things we talk about. But I wouldn't say it was the be all and end all in terms of the podcast. This isn't a podcast about evolution. It's not a podcast about parapsychology. It's a podcast about, you know, what it is to be an existential being in the universe.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but it sounded like you were leading towards a question, though, Elizabeth.
Well, the question that I had was, would you say that minds and language have evolved from something? And
was that the end of the question? Sorry. With minds and language, well, I mean, what is it I always say? Brains did not evolve to think. So, but I would say that has the mind evolved? Well, I definitely see an evolution of the mind. I definitely see that from our ancestors putting their hands on those walls in the caves in Spain, you know. So I think they have, whether it's directly analogous to the evolution that we get in nature in terms of biological evolution, I don't know if it's necessarily exactly the same. Remember, minds don't have babies, so you know, and they don't get pregnant, you know. So it isn't. I think the analogy breaks down, but you know, I think there's definitely been some kind of development of the mind. I don't think it's sprung fully formed in the ape.
I was going to say, because, and then an earlier, so Elizabeth wouldn't have heard this yet, because we only recorded it earlier today in conversation. You talk about the idea that human crept in to the ape, or the idea of maybe being, or existential being, therefore consciousness, maybe language, maybe mind, creeps, something happens. So I was to supplement that question, but surely, I'm saying this in a rhetorical way, but mind and language is part of the evolutionary process. It has evolved, and therefore is deemed to much the same process as other evolutionary steps.
Look, I mean, you and I have discussed this before, Matthew, that, you know, a bird song is not language, and you know, and animals use gestures and signals, but you know, and we might call it some kind of language, you know, a non-verbal language, and certainly, for example, you know, gorillas and chimpanzees and things use kind of what we might call kind of a non-verbal language, which we might call proto-language. But I think in terms of what human beings are doing, and I definitely think that language is one of the things that's facilitated human being. You know, I think one of the reasons maybe dinosaurs didn't invent Starbucks and libraries and the internet is because they didn't talk to each other and go, "Oh, I love you. Can we chat on the internet?" You know, and language is definitely an important part of that. But, you know, again, it's not, I don't necessarily think it has evolved in the same way as biological, you know, life has evolved, because, again, it's not the same kind of thing. It's a similar process, but it isn't the same kind of thing. So
and I want to then pick up then, because normally keywords linked to evolution is natural selection. And sometimes when we've had conversation where we talk about developments of at a human level, we talk about artificial selection. We start to artificially make decisions, do things, act in a way which isn't necessarily the same process.
Well, I mean,
in a very clumsy way.
Well, the fact of the matter is that natural selection, is for example, you know, death is the main thing. So, you know, you have a sharp tooth to kill things, and sharp claws to kill things, and this is why they get sharp. You know, they get sharp to inflict death and to survive. You know, survival of the fittest. I'm trying to think of the sentence. No, it's not in my head. The struggle for survival. The evolution of. I'm losing my train of thoughts.
Trying to help you out here, Louie.
What was the question? What was the question?
What the hello? What day is it?
What was the question? I'm a bit tired. What was the question?
What's this? What's this?
I don't often lose my train of thought. To give me some credit, right?
You're usually about to flip with some shit going on. So does that answer your question, Elizabeth?
No, but what was that? I don't think I did answer the question quite. No, you said about artificial selection.
Yeah.
Now, artificial selection doesn't necessarily have the requirement that the creature must be able to survive. And so, for example, you know, the Chihuahua, which has been artificially selected for a wolf. I mean, stick a Chihuahua out in the wild, it's not going to last very long. I mean, there's plenty of creatures that can kill Chihuahuas, even though its direct ancestor is the wolf. So you see, you're removing it from nature. You're not requiring it to struggle for existence, and you're actually picking qualities, characteristics that we favor, not that are favored in the struggle for existence. In terms of ourselves, I definitely think that artificial selection has been an important process in our psychological, mental evolution of ourselves. We have artificially selected ourselves, you know, from our ancestors. I definitely think that is a part of the process. Yeah.
Does that answer your question, Elizabeth?
Yes. Yes,
I
it
think,
does.
Elizabeth, did you fall asleep? Sorry, Elizabeth.
No, I was.
I've got 4 degrees to work on here, mate. I'm not this crap.
I think I have another question regarding nihilism.
Oh, so we're changing subjects now. By the way, Matthew Smith, Dr. Matthew Smith is in the room, and he can be asked questions.
Well, but as I think Alyssa's pointing out, is that you're making the kind of bigger statement.
Sure.
I'm another question asker. I'm a learner, whereas you, Louie, you have all the answers.
I'm the man with the answers. This is true. This is true. I'm Jesus. Come to me, and I will tell you. Come on, then.
So,
nihilism.
Okay. So the question I had about the nihilism was that you're a proponent of nihilism, right? Now, do you mean that in an objective sense, or do you mean that in sort of all senses?
I mean, this is an interesting question because we have yet to talk to our nihilist philosopher professor, John Mitz, I think his name's pronounced, and I'm very much looking forward to chatting to him in the very near future. Now, my understanding of nihilism, I must admit, was for me, nihilism about I don't think there is any meaning in the universe, and I mean meaning in the universe in terms of top down. You know, there is meaning in a library, you know, meaning on the high street, meaning in between you and I, but I don't believe there is meaning in the universe. Having read some of John's stuff, you know, I kind of get the feeling that he's describing nihilism as a kind of a struggle for perfection and realizing that you're never going to achieve it. And so you kind of feel, well, because you can never achieve perfection, and you know, that's the end of it. Every single thing that you do is pointless. I'm still tussling with whether I agree or disagree with this. I mean, I definitely feel a great affinity for the nihilists that I encounter. I think I probably am an existential nihilist, if such a thing, but I don't profess to be an expert on these things, and you're the philosopher, Elizabeth. So you tell us as a.
No, I wouldn't be an expert in that.
Well, would you describe yourself as a nihilist, Elizabeth?
To some extent, yes.
Go on. Why only to some extent?
Because it becomes a complication, and this was another question I had for Louie, because I remember when he was talking about love, he was mentioning evolution. It was due to evolution, and if it just makes it hard if you want to think that there's objective truths out there. I think because if you think that there's no objective meaning, it becomes harder to sort of assert like an objective view of love or an objective view of truth or an objective view of sort of anything. And you kind of are sort of forced, I think, in some senses to go subjectivist with everything.
I mean, the thing is that, I mean, what was the question then? Is there a question there?
I guess the question is we use if there's only subjective meaning, or there's only like a subjective feeling of love between two people in your view, right? Mm-hmm. Then would you say that love itself is a subjective thing, or is there a more universal love that exists?
No, I mean, universal love. Look, love. Don't make me laugh. I mean, no. I want to know what love is. Yeah, look, I've been in love. I know what love feels like. It's a great feeling. It's a drug. I don't really think it's anything more than a drug. It doesn't make the universe any more purposeful. It doesn't pervade anything. It doesn't hold anything together. Atoms are not held together by love. Galaxies are not held together by love. And as much as I wouldn't want to remove love from the universe, you know, and I love you both, you know, as human beings and as people and whatever. Objective love, I don't know if I know what that would mean.
And also the term used by Elizabeth is universal love. So what would, again, I'm going to ask these basic questions because I think it's helpful when we're talking about them to have some kind of shared understanding. Mm-hmm. So Elizabeth, what would you mean by universal love?
What I mean is that there's like an objective standard. So that a universal love in the sense of we can all sort of, there's like a truth out there, like this is what love constitutes. And everyone can hold up their like subjective love to that standard and see if they meet it or not.
Is this like a platonic? You mean as in a platonic shape?
No, I mean that there's like an objective. There's like an objective truth or an objective. There's an objectivism to it. So there's like an objective love that exists, so that everybody who is in love would meet certain conditions. Or do you think that people just define love for themselves in their relationships subjectively?
I mean, I don't know. This is one of the kind of questions that a philosopher, and it just makes you want to hate philosophy, doesn't it? Really?
What? No.
Is this a little bit like asking if we all see the color green or something? Is that kind of what you're getting at? Or because I mean, I definitely think that we have love. And when we talked about the love episode, I said that, I can definitely see that the beginning of love, proto-love, is between, a mother and an offspring. And the offspring holds on to the mother, and the mother is holding on to the offspring. And the love is the chemical bond that keeps them together, and I can see that. And then what happens is that bond is weakened. It doesn't have to be between a mother and a offspring. It can be between a mother and a sister, and a mother and a brother, and a mother and a father, and a mother and a friend. And what happens is that it spreads out over different relationships and becomes less tied to any one individual. It actually becomes applicable in many different situations. And in a monogamous society, we use love to keep relationships, to bond them together, a bit like bonding bricks or glue being holding them together. I don't know if I can say anything more than that in terms of objective, subjective. I don't quite. Again, it's my. Am I answering the question or not?
Well, I think you are, and I think to us it's us floundering a little bit, Elizabeth, with this idea. Well, the term love, of course, is used in lots of different ways. So some here we're talking about being in love. And when people talk about being in love, typically with a partner or another person, and it definitely has an experiential element to it, has an emotional element to it. Now, whether or not that captures anything other than that, and then you're asking, I think, are we talking about, is there something, when I'm talking about something objective out there that exists separately from any person or individual's individual experience of it, that we can describe as being love, that could include the experience of being in love and love for another person and for children and for animals and for others and so on. But it's something broader as a bigger principle that we can call love with a capital L. Is that what we might understand as and I'm asking these questions not as a psychologist, not as a scientist, not as a philosopher, but as a man stumbling through life saying, is that what you mean? Is that what you're talking about, or something different from that?
Well, kind of. Because they already have 6 different types of love. They have like eros, ludus, storge, agape. And those are just
you're making these up.
And also, you say they. Isn't that determined on language and culture? Do they not also have an impact upon different labels we have for experiences or things we can conceptualize?
Do the Inuit not have 20 million names for snow?
I'm sure they do. Can you go through a few of them? But so yes, there are all these terms for love, and we can talk about them from different perspectives. So therefore, by saying something objectively, is there something out there that we can then all tap into with our own subjective experience of love? Is that the question? Is that the way the philosopher would ask the question?
Yes.
I mean, are we comparing it to morality then? If I say morality, are you asking me if there's such a thing as objective good? Is that what you're asking me?
Kind of.
Yeah.
It's the same.
I don't believe in objective good.
Do you believe in anything objective that exists?
Do I believe in anything objective? Well, I mean, if I say that I believe that the universe exists, objectively exists. I think that, is that the same? Am I answering, or is it a different kind of thing?
Good question. Let's ask it to our listener.
Yeah, come on, then, listener.
That seems to be a different thing.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So what is
it? Your existence presupposes the existence of the universe.
I mean, So what kinds of things would you like me to say I do? Because I don't believe in good or bad or evil.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I'm going to include love in that.
What about truth?
Yeah, again, I mean, well, the thing is I believe that there is a truth to the universe, but I don't think anybody decided that was the truth. So I think that any other truth is probably as good as any truth given the universe's state, if you see what I'm saying.
And this is what I see that. So Elizabeth's initial question was about nihilism, and you being a nihilist, and people being nihilists. So of course, me not being someone who would identify with nihilism, I quietly sort of on my iPad look down there and go, okay, the internet, an encyclopedia of philosophy, because to some extent we're asking both, or you're asking yourselves or each other, reflecting on to what extent are you nihilists? And therefore, what I asked the question, what do we mean by that? So at least the internet encyclopedia of philosophy starts with, it's the belief that all values are baseless and that nothing can be known or communicated. So that's, I think, also maybe touching on what Elizabeth is saying in terms of truth. It's often associated with extreme pessimism and a radical skepticism that condemns existence. And then the next sentence suggests a true nihilist, so maybe the question is, are you a true nihilist, would believe in nothing, have no loyalties and no purpose other than perhaps an impulse to destroy. Well, that to me goes an extra step that it doesn't need to.
I don't think, I mean, this is why, and when we talk to John Momitz in the future, you know, again, I think in communicating with me, he has said that people have criticized him for not being of a destroying ilk, you know, of perhaps being too philosophical and not being a full-on nihilist. I mean, again, if I'm an existential nihilist, for me, I don't see any inherent, I don't see any inherent purpose in the universe. I don't see any inherent truth. I don't see any inherent purpose. I think you can be self-motivated, whether that's a contradiction in terms, since I don't really believe in the self, you know. I don't necessarily think that, you know, committing suicide is a good solution. We still have to put one foot in front of the other. Good to have a natter.
And then I think that post is flawed because there's lots of different types of nihilism. So you could be like, and you could be like an existential nihilist like Louie, or you could be maybe an epistemological nihilist. So I sort of lean more toward epistemological nihilism, or a sort of meaningless or a lack of, there is really no like knowledge that exists.
So can I ask, is that a kind of postmodernism then? Is that what that is?
No, it's more of we can't know anything. Like you can't know anything at all. Like there is no ability to know anything in an objective sense.
I mean, what does that mean? Because, you know, I have a picture on my wall upstairs, which has from Hubble space, you know, the Hubble Space Telescope looking at the darkest part of the night sky, and upon that picture is, you know, thousands of galaxies. Now, you know, I think I'm a pretty skeptical person, pretty, you know, nihilistic, whatever. I don't deny that there are galaxies out there, as far as our human instruments can detect, that don't give a shit what you and I believe. You know, they don't exist to, God didn't put the fossils in the ground to make us believe in something that is not true. I think that would be the height of egotism. So, I mean, where do you stand on that question? You know, obviously you believe, I mean, do you deny Hubble's imagery?
Well, it's harder to explain than that. It's just what I as an epistemological nihilist, what I would argue is that the belief in something. So I have beliefs, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I know what those are. Right. Because I don't have enough justification to say that is what it is versus everything else that it could be. I mean, and I think that there's this sort of, I think this is really based on the fact that everything seems to be, you have to make some assumptions somewhere. Like even with Hubble, you still have to make assumptions regarding its ability to take accurate pictures. I remember when they first put Hubble into space, they had to actually go up and fix it because the images were flawed.
And that's very true. I mean, they were flawed and they had to kind of put glasses on Hubble. But I still don't see that. I mean, okay, there are galaxies out there, though. I mean, I don't really think that they're flying pancakes or, I don't know, you know.
But what I'm saying is you don't know if there's multiverses or not.
But why that wouldn't change what we interpreted those galaxies as, though? I mean, I'm very much of the opinion that there probably are multiverses. I mean, of course, you know, infinity of multiverses every direction. But I don't think that changes what Hubble is showing me, though. I don't understand why. I mean, do you really deny that picture? That's what I'm saying?
No, I can believe that the picture is an accurate representation, but but again, I think that when we really look at sort of how long that light takes for to travel here, right? And it takes light years, like billions of light years.
Billions of years, yeah, sure.
So it's like, is that accurate of how it looked? I don't know.
Well, yeah.
You know, what if the light has been refracted, or I don't know. I'm not really good at talking about space and things like that. But what if some of the light from that universe was like sucked into a black hole or something, and ultimately we're not receiving a full image of what it is?
And also, I want to say then, so stepping away from that specific example, that any of our understanding of the world, the universe around us, is going to be based upon limited information. So therefore, it may well be that our knowledge is limited, but then if I'm understanding epistemological nihilism, is that you simply cannot have knowledge or truth. There's no such thing as knowledge.
Well, I wouldn't make that assertion that those things don't exist. I would say that you can't know them.
But the thing
there's a difference between something existent.
It's a limited understanding based upon available data.
Yes.
All right, but sorry, I mean, no, okay, there is life on the planet. There is fossils in the ground. Life began from a single cell. What the fuck I mean, I'm sorry, I can't see how that isn't true. And okay, we might not know exactly how it is, but we don't necessarily say, well, fuck it, I can't see a thing. I mean, one of the things that, you know, creationists say about, say, the evolution of the eye. What's the point in half an eye? What's the point in a quarter of an eye? Well, I'm telling you now, if you're fucking blind, a quarter of an eye is better than no eye. Half an eye is better than no eye. Being able to move towards the sun, away from the sun. And I don't really need to know any more than that. You know, and isn't that a lot of what I've just said? I think that is quite, you know, it's worth knowing, and it is something that I feel absolutely sure. And I don't think I'm deluding myself, and I don't think I'm saying something that's untrue. That, you know, zero eye, half an eye, you know, to a modern eye, is how it works. And so where is the contention? So
Elizabeth, I want to ask then again, because I am scanning down the page at the Internet Encyclopedia of Philosophy. I'm being very honest, but I'm learning. So at least here, it almost suggests that epistemological nihilism is one of the more extreme forms of nihilism?
Yes, I would say so.
We're denying almost the fundamental of knowledge or truth. And Louie did make some links there to postmodern. So there's a little sentence here. So extreme skepticism is linked to epistemological nihilism, which denies the possibility of knowledge and truth. This form of nihilism is currently identified with postmodern anti-foundationalism. What do we mean by anti? Is that a phrase that you're familiar with? Postmodern anti-foundationalism.
Yes, to a certain extent. I mean, like there's something called dogmatic foundationalism, and that basically is like that you have certain assumptions that you have to make in order to make knowledge claims and truth claims. Now, I'm actually not a postmodernist. I hate postmodernism. And the reason why I hate postmodernism is because I feel like the postmodernists want to say that there is no objective truth, but then they also want to make objective statements. So saying that there is no objective truth is an objective statement. And so their position just doesn't really make any sense to me, honestly.
So anti-foundationalism In essence, again, he explains to an idiot over here who's coming across these terms for the first time, and I'm not looking at Louie, although he's swinging as well. So if at least on this source I'm looking at is linking epistemological nihilism with a certain aspect of anti-foundationalism.
So basically, it just means that there's not some fundamental belief or principle that is basically the foundation of inquiry or knowledge. So if you look at any sort of discipline, if you look at the sciences, they make fundamental assumptions about sort of like falsifiability, if you're going Popper, right? Or what a paradigm is if you're going, or some of the other like demarcations of science, right? So falsifiability is something that is sort of a belief or principle that sort of most of the sciences, if not all the sciences, actually use to do inquiry and knowledge. And an anti-foundationalist would say, well, why are we using that as a standard? What is the basis of picking that as a principle that we use to do science?
Okay. And therefore then, so it's, in this context, Louie being an existential nihilist now makes me feel good. You feel quite moderate there, Louie. You feel quite kind of, because here you were talking about essentially then existential nihilism, that life has no inherent meaning that's kind of bestowed upon it.
Well, that's an extreme. Any nihilistic position is going to be an extreme position.
I mean, I was going to say
that doesn't feel too extreme to me. Right?
Well, I was going to say though, it's funny because I actually think that I deny the existence of the self, for example. I don't really believe in the self. So let's not say I'm not extreme, because I don't know many people who don't really believe in themselves as a construct. So and whether that's something we discuss in continuing podcasts. But I mean, I think some of this is, I don't know about you, Matthew, but I've always been a bit suspicious about philosophers.
And also listeners.
And also listeners, yeah. And Americans.
So this sounds this feels like hard work having to actually sort of just, but I find it helpful. I've now had a new source I can learn more about existentialism and nihilism in particular.
We're talking Elizabeth here. She's always up. She's up for some teaching.
Well, absolutely, in terms of stimulating some questions, because I now want to read more and more about nihilism.
Now, Matt, I have a question for you.
Who, me?
Yes.
Oh my goodness! Right, go on.
So, how do you feel about truth and objective, and subjective truth and love and all of that stuff? Like, what do you think about it?
I'm finding literally over the last few weeks and months, through more and more conversations with Louie and others like yourself, is that I'm questioning more of the things that I would have normally taken for granted. So again, not being a philosopher, not being someone who studied philosophy, in that I think we tend to work on assumption there is an objective reality out there, and anything that we might describe as our subjective experience of it is just that. It's that element of it which I think psychologists as a group tend to explore, and often have this assumption that, or many of the approaches are such that you're trying to tap into some kind of objective reality, objectivism, objective truth, but realizing that you are, or to me, it's just a kind of, you're seeing things through a perspective. So that's as much as you can do. So I don't necessarily feel as though, again, having just been introduced this idea of epistemological nihilism, I wouldn't intuitively be drawn to that. Just feel as though we can make a best guess of things based upon subjective experience, empiricism, deduction, all of these things that maybe draw upon it as methods to understand the best way we can the world around us. And therefore, maybe it's only scraping the surface of whether or not that's taking us closer to a so-called objective truth. These aren't things that I would have then massively pondered upon prior to the last few weeks or so. So that's why I feel I'm still very much naive, and that's why I'll be a lot of the time saying I'll ask some basic sounding questions, because I know, unlike yourself, I haven't studied these things and looked at literature and spent time really exploring what isms do I feel as though I am drawn to.
So you haven't got 3 degrees then? Is that what you're saying, Matthew?
I haven't got 3 degrees.
Well, that's where you're going wrong.
Absolutely. And mine have been heavily based within psychology, which I'm now, again, what I have done after 20 years of spending there thinking, I think the approaches there are fundamentally limited, flawed, and you wonder whether or not are they on a hiding to nothing, as we've often discussed, in terms of the kinds of research we see our colleagues doing will tell us something about some element, some small part of some psychological experience, and you start going to yourself, shrugging, going, really? Is that going to be a life well spent trying to understand that minutiae of experience? So I'm just sort of starting into exploring these bigger questions. So I want to say thank you for at least allowing me to at least better understand and notice the different forms of nihilism, because we have been looking forward to speaking to Louie refers to our nihilist, or do you want a nihilist? Or our nihilist? Our
nihilist, yeah,
it's not ours. It's just
it's
one that Louie has asked if he would be on the podcast.
He's coming soon.
Yeah, and I could be better placed to kind of ask, hopefully, some at least meaningful sounding questions about even what do we mean by nihilism, and it's an appropriate question to ask. What type of nihilist might you describe yourself as being? So I now better understand even Louie when he says he's an existential nihilist. And say in the context of what you're describing, Elizabeth, sounds quite moderate to me.
Do we pick this conversation up in a future episode, or?
Please let us.
Yes.
Thank you for that, Elizabeth. Lovely to make the contact.
Thank you.
Bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.